Hi, my name's Dr. Holly Greenwood. I'm a lecturer in evidence law and miscarriage of justice at Cardiff and help run the Innocence Project with Charlie and Dennis Eady, who you heard from earlier.
I'm Charles Westwood. I was a practicing criminal defence solicitor, practicing criminal defence for about 8 years before joining Cardiff as a practicing solicitor, but with the Innocence Project, and also lecturing on the miscarriage of justice module.
So we don't want to keep you for very long because we know, out of everyone here today, ours is, we feel like we've had a lot of really, really important talks. But I suppose what it does do is it reminds us to think about why we do what we do, despite the fact that we're incredibly unsuccessful at overturning wrongful convictions as an Innocence Project. So we were just going to look at some of those points. So I won't dwell on this too much, but when Innocence Projects were started in 2004 by Michael Norton, Claire McGauley was involved early on as well, there was a view that the criminal appeal system was completely failing people. It wasn't rooting out factual innocence. It wasn't looking properly at cases where there was evidence of innocence and focusing too much on this need for fresh evidence or new legal argument, all things we're still talking about today. And Michael Norton, when he started it, said he saw Innocence Projects were going to be sort of a pinnacle for people to give them help in their cases and hope in challenging their cases, but also educating students, which really is a fundamentally important part of what we do, but also potentially educating people who will go out into the system. So for us at Cardiff Law School, that was established in 2006, so we've been going a really long time by Julie Price. And at the time, we were very much focused on, we want to look at all the evidence, we want to find these cases where there's evidence of factual innocence, and we want to challenge, the CCRC and say, look at this again, look at all this evidence. And one of the first cases I worked on as a student in 2009 was a case like this. There's overwhelming evidence of innocence, but because every time you go to appeal, the bar gets higher and higher when they keep saying no, we still have never overturned that case. And I think that's why I got into what I have, seeing that play out. And so reflecting on what we've been doing, we have actually overturned 2 cases in our time. Obviously, that's not a huge amount given how long we've been around, but in this justice system, it's actually pretty good. But even that, the last one was 2018, so we're starting to feel a bit hopeless again. So I think it's important for us to reflect on, why do we still do what we do? Is what we do of any use to our clients? And so what we did a couple of summers ago is we asked our clients to give us feedback about sort of the service, and we did find some really interesting themes emerge from that.
Yeah, so in light of that, firstly, welcome to all those people who are new to the joyous sharing experience of banging your head against the brick wall of the criminal justice system. So all those people who didn't think they're ever going to be involved with it, well done for getting started. It's a long, long road. In terms of the service that we're providing, when I came in partway through this question, but it was a pretty key question which I wanted to get involved with, which was, what are we actually doing as an Innocence Project? What value are we providing? In practice, in a law firm, you're always very key with what's the service you're providing. There's quite a few people who might question the service they've been provided. But what value are we providing other clients? Who are we actually providing service to? Especially as that was one of the founding principles of the Innocence Project as well. Also then, how does that tie in with the educational aspect as well? So how does that create a broader value? Does that work with the duty to clients? Is it aside? How does that fit into the overall picture? And then how has that role developed over time? Is it what it was before? Has it become something else? Have we become just another part of a system which is overall problematic? Are we capable, for example, of challenging where challenge is needed, the system as it exists? Or are we providing a service to clients where we're helping clients navigate an already broken system? Those were very grandiose sort of ideas and ideals of this research. And I'll just let Holly bring in on you can use this.
So we got about 32 clients who responded. And I think the themes that we just want to pick up on briefly today, which I think are important, but also following on from what Nicholas just said, also interesting. But things that strongly emerged from our clients was the importance of hope that we gave them whilst they were fighting and banging their head against a brick wall. the fact that they felt we fully listen to them and investigate their case fully, even if it's not necessarily going to lead to grounds for appeal, and the fact that we do listen to their arguments about innocence and take them on board. So I will very briefly just go through that. So we've always asked this question, is some hope better than no hope? And what if that's false hope? Now, just to be clear, we are very clear with clients about how difficult it is when we take them on. And actually, some of them said our letter that first goes out is almost too negative in what we say, because we're basically saying we have no chance, but if you've got nowhere else to go, we will have a look at your case for you. But actually coming out of this, and I think it really does pick up on what Nicola was saying, it is a difficult one, isn't it? They did say that hope was really important to them at times, and these were people, actually all of the people we spoke to, their cases haven't been successful. And so these were people that hadn't got the outcome that they wanted. But they said, you gave me hope, you were the light at the end of the tunnel. And they said having us work for them gave them feelings of worthiness and giving them some hope back and a sense of purpose. And someone else said even a slight hope where there was none. But I suppose it does raise the question of what happens when we eventually have to say we can't do any more. And for the most of these clients, that had been the case, and they seem to have taken that on board. But it was interesting to hear that hope was actually really, really important to them, even though we constantly worry about it. Over time, we've realized we can't go to the CCRC and just tell them about all the evidence that we know that exists that might make someone look innocent, because they don't care. They will just write a letter back and say, that's not new, that's not fresh, that's not going to be taken into account by the Court of Appeal. So we don't really take that approach anymore. But when we do our investigations, we do investigate everything the client asks us to investigate. And we try and look at everything, even if we know it's not going to be a ground for appeal, just to get a full understanding of the case and make sure we can say to the client, we've looked at that, and this is what we found. And interestingly, they found that really, really important for them, because I think so often people in the criminal justice system don't feel like anyone's listening to them. They will speak to a lawyer or speak to, I'm sure a lot of lawyers do, but if it's not a ground for appeal, they can be told, that's not important. I don't care if you're innocent. I need to look at the evidence. And all that is true. That is how the legal system works. But I think that's where our position, sort of sitting outside of that, was valuable to clients. I won't go through all the quotes, but just saying someone who believes in us when no one else would, having someone to talk about, being supported. And one of them described us as more like a second family. And when I'm referring to these comments, they're really talking about Dr. Dennis Eady, who sits there every single day by the phone, taking phone calls from prisoners, talking to them day in, day out about the same evidence that they're angry about, and he talks them through that and understands what they're going through as best as he can from his experience. And yeah, they've said you've managed to cover every aspect and find information not even I or our legal team knew about. And then finally, we've always questioned, should we be focusing on innocence? We should really, most of the time we're really looking, is this conviction safe? But the fact that we do listen to their arguments about innocence, and we will take that into account when we're looking at our investigation, that was also really, really important to the clients. And they felt having someone believe in their innocence was of fundamental importance to them. So based on that, it kind of gave us some feeling that what we were doing, despite the lack of success, was still having value to our clients.
Yeah, just coming back on that a little bit as well, it's overwhelmingly clear that we do perform some level of quasi-therapeutic role. And see, Dr. Dennis Eady takes the phone calls, he speaks to these people, and he's honest with them. Probably the first person that's been honest with a lot of these people throughout their pathway through the criminal justice system. But then it's kind of, as Holly says, are we providing an innocence project? What are we service are we providing? But coming now onto the educational aspects, obviously we have students coming through every year working on this project, and clearly we're providing them with an educational experience. We're hopefully introducing them to concepts which they wouldn't otherwise have access to through an academic lens. But the concern is obviously that given the fact that we aren't successful, given the fact that we are providing a more quasi-therapeutic type treatment, what are the students getting from that? Or more concerningly, what might the students be damaged by through that process? So we approached the survey with a certain level of caution, as we did with clients as well, knowing that we were largely unsuccessful. And themes came out in terms of educating a new generation of lawyers, wanting to work in criminal defense. I have really tried not to put them off. My experience is not a fantastic one working in criminal defense, but really trying not to put them off, because obviously we need to have criminal defense lawyers. We have a shortage of criminal defense lawyers, slightly contributed to by myself from leaving practice. But there we go. It was really interesting to see how some opinions had changed as well. And we saw this on the module as well in terms of reflections on people's education. So people coming in with a rigid view of how criminals are dealt with, how criminals should be dealt with in the UK, that they should be in prison, educating them that this is not a total picture. Yes, it may well be accurate in many cases, but there are enough cases where there are problems where things need to be questioned and challenged. So it's good to see the students were being not indoctrinated, but maybe their impressions were being broadened beyond what they were seeing in the media. Concerningly, lot less trust in the justice system, perhaps accurate. After working on the Innocence project, heartlessness in the courtroom aftermath of the prison system, obviously we get very traumatic accounts from people who've gone through those systems. So it's good that students are engaging with that. Highlighting many issues and shock in terms of the media's treatment of cases as well. Put a name into a Google, you get a completely different aspect of the case from what you'll actually see written down on case papers. I think that's been a theme today as well, is how the media are contributing to the furtherance and the erosion of the presumption of innocence. The media are almost convicted, or definitely convicting people before it even gets into the courtroom. I saw this in practice as well, client complaining, this has been in the media. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not a libel case. The media is unguarded in the way it's doing things at the moment. We also felt that we could actually be guided by the student feedback in terms of how we're providing, but also whether we continue to provide a service, whether we continue to provide this project. Because every year we have an existential crisis in terms of should we be doing what we're doing given the lack of success, given what the situation is. And obviously students coming back saying that it is a valuable opportunity and that we are providing a service that not many organizations do actually provide. But overwhelmingly, I won't go through it all, but overwhelmingly they're focusing on the educational experience, the availability of that kind of exposure to cases. In terms of the future of the Innocence project, what was unfortunately missing was any kind of suggestion that it would actually be changing the system or that it would be getting people out of prison, which is probably accurate. So very much from the feedback that we got, the positive feedback was from clients on the sort of therapeutic, the voice, the furtherance of hope, and from students on the educational. But what was missing was innocence. What was missing was the sort of the furtherance of innocence and the protection of innocence. That was what was missing. And I think in a lot of ways that confirmed a lot of what we were worried about and what we were already thinking as well. So whether we're totally positive after reading this feedback or receiving this feedback, I think there's more work to be done, primarily because we got very few respondents. If anyone's tried to get responses to feedback surveys in their life, they know that it's trying to get blood out of stone sometimes, but I think there's more work to be done there in terms of how we can develop it. But largely we are operating within a system, and too often we are just repeating the kind of arguments which the CCRC or the court might be making themselves, because we know that ultimately we can't give somebody false hope when we know something's going to be unsuccessful. So Holly's going to come back on.
Yeah, this is the last slide. But yeah, just to finish off, so I think we feel like the innocence aspect of what we do is really important to clients, knowing that we're listening to what they're saying and fully investigating their case as best we can without just focusing on the legal grounds for appeal. And I think we do have to be careful how we do that, but I think it is something that gives them a voice, I think, in a system where they quite often feel voiceless. And then the emotional support role of the Innocence Project. We're probably now less about casework actually succeeding and more about the emotional support that's being given to clients as they go through this horrendous system that we've all been talking about today. And thank Lord for Dennis, who is here, for always being there on the end of the phone. So I think certainly us, we've evolved over time, but I think hopefully we are still providing fun. So that's all we're going to say for Think It's Not. So thank you very much.